Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Sports. Super Wild Card Weekend has come and gone.
Hold on.
I'm gonna jump off with it.
No, I'm gonna take the reins for this for this first one. Before we get started, how about them Cowboys?
They suck.
Steven, Steven, you had every opportunity to go far in the playoffs.
Yep.
And y'all sucked.
Yep.
You look like the Panthers out there.
Yep. I'm not going to disagree with anything that you said.
What happened with the defense? As a fan, take the reins. Tell us about what was going on Saturday.
Dak Prescott will catch a lot of flack, as he should. He did not play well at all. His stat line will say that he played a decent game outside the picks. A lot of that was garbage time when they were just sitting back. The worst part of that game, nobody wants to recognize it, and you won't see it in the national media. A few people, Rex Ryan talked about it, but the defense was atrocious.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what the offense was doing, even when they had sparks of showing some progress, moving the ball, scoring points, the defense would just immediately give it up. And it's not even like it was long. It was just like busted plays and just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Type of plays. I think they said there was 54 defensive snaps, 46 or 48 of them. They ran 6 defensive back zone coverage. The Cowboys have ran man coverage 18 weeks in a row. Yeah. And then you get in the playoffs and you don't do what got you there defensively. I mean, you were dropping Micah Parsons into coverage. Makes no sense. The Packers they're built on the run to give them the play action to then feed into the pass. And you sat back and basically played the pass the whole time, and you couldn't even stop the pass. I mean, Jordan Love looked like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, even like the back foot, just throwing fadeaways. I mean, just literally the way that if you put a number 12 on him with Rodgers on his back, you would have thought that was Aaron Rodgers out there. He
couldn't have had a better game, and it being his playoff debut.
He really couldn't.
Yeah,
and shout out to the Packers. They are the youngest team to win a playoff game in NFL history. And shout out to Brian, I can't say his last name, their GM. He caught a lot of flack for, they didn't go out and sign a big-time wide receiver or tight end. They win the draft. They got some guys. Yeah. It's all, first and second year guys. And they just, obviously at the beginning of the year, they weren't doing well. They just stuck with it, stuck to what they wanted to do, got things rolling. Got hot at the end.
I think it speaks a lot to Matt Lefluer as a head coach as well, because I went to get dinner or something during the game. It was like right as the second half was beginning, and I think y'all had scored maybe before the first half ended, and then I think you scored again or something to begin the second half. Yep. I was like, Cowboys about to make a play or make it a game, and then Green Bay just scored again.
I mean, they started out offensively terrible. Dak obviously had the pick. And listen, on that first pick, it very well could have been.
That was just a good play on the ball.
It was. It very well could have been defensive pass interference, too. I'm not going to argue that. It was a good play on the ball, I think. So that, that wasn't necessarily on Dak. I think that he had the pass. Jair Alexander just makes a good play.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. Offensively, though, they got it kind of going. Like I said, they were able to move the ball and score. And it's just like when they did, and you're like, okay, we got something going here. Mm-hmm. You scored in a half. Didn't get a touchdown coming out of half. Got a field goal, so you've got 10 unanswered points. Bam, just give it up. And every time the Cowboys scored, immediately gave it up. And like I said, Dak did not play good. He did not play MVP level. He didn't play All Pro level. Like he made the second team All Pro. But at the end of the day, nobody played good. Nobody. I mean, and I really and truly, the defense let us down because
that was disappointing for sure. And
here's the thing: is like a lot of people are. I think Dan Quinn's gone. I think he was gone either way.
I think he's getting a head coach. Honestly, dude, I think your head coach is gone. I felt like
it wouldn't surprise me.
Just the way Jerry Jones historically runs his team.
Yeah.
McCarthy fired, or maybe not fired. Correct me if I'm wrong. He either moved on and didn't renew a contract or fired Kellen Moore. Because he wanted to be over the play calling duties.
That was a mutual.
and it's possible that the play calling didn't affect the game. But yeah, the swinging point of the game.
I think the play calling did affect the game because here's the thing: is we haven't ran the ball well all year. Tony Pollard he was a disappointment all year as far as what you thought you were going to get out of him from what he was last year. You moved on from Zeke. You move on to Tony Pollard. Obviously, he broke his leg at the end of last year, so it wasn't really, great coming out of the year. And then you've been a pass-first team all year.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you come into this game and you were run-heavy to start with. You changed up what you did offensively to start the game, and then you change up what you do defensively. It makes no sense when for 18 weeks, you win 12 games doing the same thing, playing defense a certain way, man coverage, trying to get to the quarterback. You play offense where you're a pass-first team, just because you just don't have a running game. And then you come into the playoffs, you have home field, which you've been undefeated at home all season, and then you go zone coverage instead of man, and you run the ball instead of pass. It makes no sense. It was just a nobody did their job.
Yeah, I feel like changing your schematics or your plan on defense is a lot worse than offense because you're still always going to run and pass the ball no matter what. Yeah. But if you're running, like zone coverages, and I'm not going to pretend to know the full ins and outs of it, but that seems to be, and you saw this throughout majority of the games, there's always confusion with who's going in what area.
Exactly.
With zones compared to man. It's like, at least with man, it's like, you're my guy.
Right.
This is your guy.
And that's how the Cowboys have thrived this year defensively. It's like, all right, this is me. I'm one-on-one with this guy.
Yeah.
If he beats me, he beats me. If not, I got him.
Yeah.
And that's what they've thrived on. They've thrived on, I'm better than you one-on-one.
Yeah.
And just having the confidence. And like you said, you get into that zone, it's like, all right, who's in this zone? If you don't run zone all year, like you said, you just get into that mode of like, all right, who's doing what? Because it's so much easier, and that's why I think that they have done well defensively is because it was just straight up. I'm covering this guy.
Yeah.
And you get into that zone, and then there's a lot of finger pointing. People get frustrated. You got a lot of pre-snap. Who's doing what?
There were a ton of busted, maybe not a ton, but there
was a ton of busted coverages.
There's big busted coverages plays.
I mean, the
one led to a touchdown.
The one where the guy, he could have been in Houston, and he was that wide open.
Because, that was, y'all were gaining some momentum back. And whatever momentum you had.
I think it was third down. It was like 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 12. It was a big third down.
Yeah.
And you're just like, all right, you stop them here. You got momentum on offense. Stop them here, get the ball back, score, and you're right back in this game. And it's just like, he's 50 yards open. Like, no one was even close.
The offense was trying to get back into it. Defense just wasn't allowing it.
Exactly.
And that's tough. That seemed to be, the theme of the Super Wild Card weekend because just a bunch of turnovers just killed a bunch of teams. The Steelers, the Browns.
Yep.
What do you think they should do? Do you think they'll fire Mike McCarthy? Do you want him gone?
I think you definitely got to move on. And as much as Dan Quinn has done for Dallas and their defense, it just seems like they didn't show up in big games.
That seems to be the theme of the Cowboys.
And the thing is like...
No offense, but it is. Like, historically, like,
for sure.
over the past 2 decades, since 2002, Zeb had the graphic up, the Cowboys have won 4 playoff games.
Yeah.
Ever since your big run in the 90s,
Jerry
in
Jones
80s,
sold his soul to win in the 90s, and he's paying for it now.
And
here's the thing, but what I mean by... With like Dan Quinn though, and his defense is just not showing up. And I didn't save it, but when he was the head coach of the Falcons, he had Kyle Shanahan. I think he had Matt Lefluer on staff.
He was the 28-3.
He had, I think, Sean McVay. Maybe
no, that was.
No, but Sean McVay was under Dan Quinn at some point.
Was he?
Or they were on the same sets.
I know all of them like that. Coaching tree: Mike McDaniel, Matt Lefluer, Kyle Shanahan. There's a bunch of them were all with the Commander, or when they were the Redskins, the Commanders.
No,
now.
under the Falcons though too. At least Kyle Shanahan and I want to say Matt Lefluer, but either way, whenever he is faced off against his former, coaching tree, he's lost. They've picked him apart. They know exactly what he wants to do defensively, and they've picked him apart. And like I said, defense is just they don't show up in the big games, and unfortunately, like I said, Dak did not play good.
Yeah,
but he wasn't the reason that the Cowboys lost.
Yeah.
He had 2 bad interceptions, but like you said, the offense was trying to be in the game.
Yeah,
and the defense just never allowed them.
Yeah.
To do anything.
He was the quarterback's coach from 15 to 16.
Okay.
So so then he was with the Rams for a year, then went to the Titans, and then became the Packers head coach.
Yep.
But honestly, when it was like almost a 30-point game, I think, and Cowboys started coming back. I was like, oh boy.
It was 27-0 at one point. Like I said, offense tried to come back. Dak will take this game on the shoulders as he always does. And listen, he should. Some of it was on him.
You get paid that money. Yeah. You bear a load of the responsibility, and all the momentum the Cowboys would have had went away very quickly with those 2 interceptions because they were in consecutive drives, correct?
Yeah.
Because they led to points.
Again, he didn't play good at all, but he played. They tried. The offense at least did something to try and keep them in the game. The defense from kickoff did nothing to keep the Cowboys in the game.
It was tough. But
so as bad as Dak played, at least they were doing something. There were spurts of trying to get back in the game, doing things to get back in the game, and the defense just never allowed it.
Yeah.
So as much as I'm going to put it on Dak, but I'm going to put it on the defense more.
Yeah. Ended up being 48-32 Green Bay.
Yep.
Another early exit for the Cowboys.
As far as coaching, and then we'll move on. I think Dan Quinn's gone. I think Dan Quinn. We just need something.
I think he's getting a head coaching job.
I think we just need something culturally. It's time to move on. Coordinator's only going to last so long before you need something fresh.
Yeah.
I think that Dan's gone. As far as Mike McCarthy, it wouldn't hurt me if he's gone. It wouldn't hurt me if he stays. I think that offensively, it was Dak's best year throughout the regular season. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was Mike McCarthy. A lot of people want Bill Belichick, but for me personally, I would rather have Jim Harbaugh than Bill Belichick, and here's the reason why. Bill Belichick wants total control.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jones is never going to give total control to a head coach. And here's the other thing is the Cowboys draft well, and that's all because of Will McClay, the player personnel, this talent scout, whatever he is. And if you try and take that away and give it to Bill Belichick, and he's out here, drafting people from, Newberry and stuff like that, the way that Bill Belichick does, it's just that's just not a good fit, I don't think. And he's old. He's old.
Yeah, and also, I just don't think Bill Belichick fits in.
He doesn't
with like the modern day game.
No.
He struck lightning in a bottle and had Tom Brady.
Right.
I think it was a little bit of both, but the way you see the Patriots playing now, it seems to be it was more Brady than Belichick because the Patriots haven't really done anything since he left.
Yep, and Brady did.
Yeah, I wouldn't give full control either. No. So, but
if it was me, if Jim Harbaugh is available,
I think he's going to the Chargers.
Yeah. And the thing is obviously if the Cowboys' job is open, he would definitely entertain it for sure.
If he's not hired already,
right?
Yeah. So he did,
and that's kind of the thing is if you move on from Mike McCarthy, you got to know that you got somebody else, in the wings. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Jim Harbaugh is meeting with the Chargers now. This week I believe
he's already interviewed with. I think he interviewed. With
if he takes
Saturday
that job,
or Sunday or Monday.
If he takes that job, you just gotta
somebody. I think it was whoever was calling the Cowboys game and said in terms of, or it may have been like the post game coverage, and it was talking about maybe changing or moving on from Mike McCarthy, and they're like, here's the way you should look at a head coach if you're making a change. If you were to fire him, would people jump over tables and whatnot to hire him?
It was Greg Olson. He
that's
talks
it. Yeah,
he talks out of his tail a lot too.
He's
but
good at
he made
job.
A good point there.
It is a good point.
Mike McCarthy would get hired by somebody else.
I think, yeah.
And if that's the case, like you said, you got a good thing, and like him and Dak have worked well. It just didn't. I don't know. It's the playoffs.
Yeah, makes a big difference.
Yeah. Anyway, Dallas choked. I'll think about it from now until April the 28th when the draft comes around. The Browns, though, took on the Texans, and this was just a shocker to me. For one, not really Flacco, but the Browns have one of the best defenses in the NFL all year.
But they have, and I think I discovered this after we recorded last week, but they have kind of faltered the past few weeks of the season. I don't think they're fully healthy. I don't think Myles Garrett was very healthy at all.
But still, I just didn't see a blowout.
No, 45-14.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever semblance of a comeback the Browns had in the third quarter went away really quickly.
Yeah.
When Flacco threw the 2 consecutive pick sixes.
Right. And sometimes it's one of those games where like the Texans were rolling, the Browns couldn't figure it out, and it just kind of. Unfortunately, it sucks because it's the playoffs, and it was the same thing with the Cowboys. It's like, all right, if this happened in the regular season, you trash it and you move on to the next game.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't now. It's the same thing with the Browns. It's like, all right, 9 times out of 10, they probably end up, I'll say 7 times out of 10, they probably beat the Texans with their defense. If you got a healthy defense, they beat the Texans. But it's one of those games where like, all right, the Texans are rolling. They got out hot. They were doing what they needed to do to win the game. It's like one of those games where it's just like, all right, you just build more confidence, and the Browns is kind of the flip. It's like, all right, we're scrambling here, and you lose confidence.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week, but dude, D'Amico Ryans has done a heck of a job.
Yeah, he should win Coach of the Year.
I mean, excuse me, even the offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick, he's going to be a head coach soon.
Yeah,
there's a lot of these coordinators, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive coordinator from the Lions that are going to be head coaches very soon.
Yeah, and for the Texans, though, it's kind of scary. And that's the thing with, like, these young quarterbacks, and you see it with Jalen Hurts as well. It's like, all right, you lose your coordinator.
Yeah.
Is it the player? Is it the head coach? Or is it the player coordinator kind of combination and how they work together? And you're going to find out because if he does move on and get a head coaching job, and I think C.J. Stroud is –
yeah,
I mean, he's an amazing talent, but you may see a little bit of a backtrack or a fault. You're
seeing it with Jalen Hurts.
Exactly. Just people don't really recognize how much a coordinator means to a quarterback.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing, not to go back to him, but like Dak had good years with Kellen Moore. It was just like it didn't never pan, and then he had a better year with McCarthy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that guy, and even when you have a bad game, stick with it because it was obviously working.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if it's an offensive coordinator, they're going to move on to a head coaching job.
Yeah. You saw it. We'll talk about this more when we cover the Lions game, but you're seeing it with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, who's the offensive coordinator, has done a heck of a job. I was watching the game with some friends Saturday night, and it wasn't the Browns-Texans game, but it was the Chiefs and Dolphins. But they're talking about if C.J. Stroud would have been picked up first overall by the Panthers, do you think he would have still have the same rookie season? No, it's all about getting drafted into the right system.
Yeah. And here's the thing is like the Texans had so much that they were given by the Browns to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
It was like they listed it out like everything they received from the Browns just for Deshaun Watson, who wasn't even playing.
Yeah.
And
he was there.
It was crazy. So, no, if he was with the Panthers, it wouldn't have been the same. Not that I don't think that he would have had a bad season. It just wouldn't have been the same. They just didn't have the.
I mean, the Texans defense, I think, takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah.
The offense,
right.
But I mean, with that coordinator, and it makes the world of a difference, and you see it because he's a confident player right now.
Yeah.
It's showing. He's.
Here's the thing: that's what you need in the playoffs right now. You got Jordan Love. He was playing well. He has this big game against Dallas. He's confident. That's scary. And it's the same thing with like the Texans. It's just like, all right, they got into the playoffs, and then they have this big win. They have this confidence. It's all about who's hot at the right time.
Yeah.
You can be the best team all year long, and the thing is like the Ravens and the 49ers have both been sitting pretty much for when they go into the game, it'll be almost 3 weeks of no like real competition. Yeah. I know they're practicing and stuff.
Yeah, you can only do so much.
You can only do so much, and especially now, you don't want to risk injury.
Yeah,
you're not going really hard. So,
but the Flacco experiment worked out pretty good. It's not the ending they wanted.
No,
they'll go back to Deshaun, and who knows what will happen with him.
We'll see.
But it was kind of like the Dallas game where the playoff game, or excuse me, the turnovers.
Yeah. It's hard to get rolling and then have turnovers, but just the way the Texans are playing, I don't think the Browns had anything for them.
I don't think so either, but it took all the momentum out the stadium for the Browns. Even though it was away, it just, you knew they weren't, and I think the Browns even knew they weren't coming back from that.
Yeah, I agree. So congrats to the Texans, going from, I think, 3 or 4 wins last year. Now they're in a division round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
D'Amico Ryans, like I said, he's the coach of the year for sure.
Coach of the year.
Chiefs and Dolphins in the 4th coldest game in NFL history, I believe. 3rd or 4th coldest game.
Did you know they have?
Yeah, I saw that. The underground heat.
Yeah,
they put that in a few years ago.
Yeah, they said it felt like on the field it was like 50 degrees. But did you see like them taking the water bottle out of like the beer coolers and it just freezing immediately?
Yeah.
No, thank you. You couldn't have paid me to go to that.
They were cracking beers and they was just foaming up and freezing as soon as, I mean, you're paying $18 for a beer. You crack it and it just foams and freezes.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no way I would have purchased any cold beverage that game.
But, it was obviously the weather affected the Dolphins. Yeah. And here's the thing is like the Chiefs are they're used to it. They get to practice there, obviously.
Yeah.
Miami, obviously, there's no way to replicate that kind of weather going into it.
Yeah. And also the Dolphins it was the theme of their season. They didn't do good against when they played the best teams in the league.
Right, yeah.
They kind of beat up on the sorry teams.
Yep.
I think their biggest win over one of the top opponents was the Bills.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen, we'll talk about him more.
When
Josh Allen turned the ball over a ton of times.
Yeah, when they won that wasn't the Bills that you're seeing now.
No, exactly. It's the Dolphins offense just
The Dolphins were they had a lot of injuries going into that game, especially defensively.
Yeah.
I don't think, even if that game was 50 or 60 degrees, just normal temperature, I don't think the Dolphins had anything for Kansas City. Because you got playoff Patty. As much as he hasn't played well in the regular season, or he's had up and down.
Yeah.
You get him in the playoffs.
Did you see his helmet break?
Yeah, that was crazy, and that just shows how cold it was.
Yeah. I bet they're gonna start testing those helmets in the cold weather.
What was the actual temperature?
I think the temperature at kickoff was like -3 with a wind chill of like -20
Yeah,
or
it was
30.
cold. But
by the 4th quarter, it was like -9.
But with that,
So I played a All-Star game in Asheville that was -3 with a wind chill of -13, and it was on a turf field. But as walking onto the field, the ground was just frozen, and you would just break grass as you're going.
Yeah, that's why they put in that underground system. They have a whole boiler system.
Yeah,
it keeps the field at 50 degrees, but I mean that's just where you're stepping. It's still.
But it's
that helps out a lot when you hit the ground, obviously, because it's like concrete.
It was so cold they couldn't film the game.
Yeah, that because you saw that with the Bills game last night or yesterday, because they don't have that in their field. They're going to have it in their new field.
I'm going to talk about that too with the Bills and when we get to their game.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs, I think when you get them into the playoffs, they're going to do Chief things. We get to see Taylor Swift one more week at least, on camera.
How are they going to do on the road next week?
Yeah, that's tough.
It's Patrick Mahomes' first playoff game on the road. It's in Buffalo. The thing is, I don't think the Dolphins were as good as everybody made them out to be this year.
Not at all.
Like I said, they are definitely a product of their schedule.
Yeah.
They won the games they were supposed to, which is what good teams should do. But when you start facing the big, the big daddies of the NFL, and they just fold every time. Like, I mean, they're play calling, and I know the weather, has a big factor in it. But I mean, it was mostly all just the same plays. And it's maybe McDaniels doesn't trust Tua. I mean, Cam Newton was right. People gave him a lot of heat when he called a bunch of these quarterbacks game managers. But I mean, it's proven to be true
so far. Yeah, it has. But I think the Chiefs will be fine. I think that they're in the playoffs now. And there's just a different, and they're the opposite from Dallas. Is that when Dallas gets to the playoffs, they choke. But when you get the Chiefs to the playoffs, no matter what they did all year, and how they looked and how inconsistent they look, you get them to the playoffs, it's like they flip a switch and they're ready to roll.
One thing I saw a couple of times this weekend in the games, and it first showed popped up to me in the Chiefs game. When these quarterbacks run the ball, and you saw this happen with Josh Allen, it looked like Patrick Mahomes. It was a big run. I think he didn't score, but it was like a 20-yard run.
Yeah.
And he's running, and it looks like he's about to slide. He's letting up a little bit, and the defensive player stopped, and then he starts running again. And then I think there has to be a way they have to outlaw that, because just say, he lets up so the defensive players are thinking he's stopping.
Yep.
And then he just takes off running again. It just kind of leaves them flat-footed. But you saw in the Buffalo game last night where Josh Allen did slide, and the defender for the Steelers, you could tell he let up a little bit, but he hit him, and then they're flagged. But then he looked like he kind of like stutter step, looked like he was going to stop, and he just took off again.
Yeah, they're definitely gaming the system, and it's tough because like that's a tough one to determine. Like, all right, when is he acting like he's sliding, or when is he just kind of making a move? It's tough to.
It's tough to play defense in the NFL because everything is geared towards. And I get it. Like you have to somewhat protect these players because the NFL is getting sued left and right by the old school players. But it's just it's impossible to play defense because you go hit them high, it's a penalty. Hit them low, people call you a dirty player. Like where you want them to hit them at? Yeah,
it's tough. But I think the Chiefs are going to be fine. Going in and taking on the Bills. Yeah. Speaking of the Bills, they played yesterday after moving their game. They were supposed to be the 1 o'clock game on Sunday. Obviously, just massive snowstorm comes through.
There's a Steelers fan that kept documenting, like where he was staying at in Buffalo.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. It's just how different where the Bill Stadium actually is.
Right.
Because if you're just looking at downtown Buffalo, they could have played,
right?
But you look at where the stadium was, and it was just like a completely different.
Apparently, they moved it because of travel. It wasn't necessarily like obviously they could clear the stadium out. They did it.
I don't think they could have been able to play.
Yeah. Here's the thing. This is my problem. Is like the Bills are building a new stadium, okay, and they have decided not to build a dome.
Yep.
Because of weather. They think that weather is a factor in the game, and it should be part of their home field advantage is their weather. Okay, but now they've had multiple games postponed or moved because of weather. It's like, and J.J. Watt talked about this. He was like, at what point does the competitive advantage outweigh, like, okay, we're moving games now. Like, how is that? It's not fair to, it's one thing to say, all right, it's cold here, you got to come play, it might snow during the game. Something like, all right, competitive advantage. Yeah. But now you're making teams sit. You're making fans who obviously are prepared to be there on a Sunday, can't be there on a Monday, that kind of, all right, so now we're losing tickets. You got to change up television stuff. But at what point does that outweigh the competitive advantage when you're moving games?
But with that storm they had, them having a dome wouldn't have affected anything.
But it would have. Like you said, downtown Buffalo is completely fine. It was just the stadium. So if you have the dome and there's no snow.
But it's the area around the stadium. Like because the Bills Stadium is in, is in Orchard Park. So they were showing videos of like the interstate or the roads to get to the stadium. You couldn't see from me to you.
Right.
And now if it was in downtown
with this
Buffalo,
game, sure. But the thing is they've had multiple games.
I don't think they were canceling it for the way the stadium was going to be. It wasn't safe for any of the teams to get there or the players to get there.
That's what they said. It was travel.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter if they had a dome or not. Like, you still couldn't get there.
In this instance. But they've had multiple games now. Like, you're building this new stadium.
Yeah.
You've had multiple instances where you have moved, canceled, postponed games because of weather. Like, you're building a new stadium. Let's take that out of it.
But if it's that kind of storm, if that's the reason why they're moving it, like I said, a dome's not going to change anything.
It ain't.
I mean, it's like, okay.
It would certainly help.
It's like, okay, a football team in the South builds a dome when a hurricane hits. They can't cancel the game because the stadium's in bad shape, but also people can't get there because it's in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's one thing if it's like silly reasons. If it's going to snow, I get it. But if it's where people can't safely get to the games, or there's the governor of a state has a order in place where you can't travel. I mean, I don't know. That's just the downside of having a team in Buffalo where that kind of weather does happen.
Can't they just build retractable domes?
Yeah, they do. I mean, Dallas has one.
But again, their stadium had no effect on the game being canceled or being postponed. That's my thing. It was the surrounding area around the stadium in that town where the weather was so bad. Where you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah, in this instance, but there has been games where they could have easily got to the stadium.
See, I don't know those instances, so I don't know.
But congrats to the Bills. They got hot at the right time. They were a team that was like, all right, you're either going to be the 2 seed or you're going to be out of the playoffs.
The Steelers didn't look like they gave two.
The Steelers were never going to win that game.
Well, no, dude, honestly, the way the game started, they looked like they wanted to be anywhere else but that football game.
Yeah.
And then when they blocked the field goal, everything changed.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it was too late.
Yeah.
And the Josh Allen you saw last night, if he plays the way he did last night or yesterday, it doesn't turn the ball over.
The Bills are unstoppable.
They're a dangerous team.
Yeah, exactly. It all hinges on which do you get like efficient Josh Allen, or do you get turnover happy Josh Allen? If you get efficient Josh Allen, they could go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I mean, they could beat anybody.
Yeah.
They really could with the defense that they have, with the running game that they have, and with Josh Allen playing elite Josh Allen, efficient ball. They could beat anybody.
Yeah.
But you could also, on the flip side, very quickly get Josh Allen, who's going to fumble the ball, who's going to throw you 2 or 3 picks in a game.
Yeah. Put some pressure on them.
Yeah. So it's just, like I said, the Chiefs, you know what you're going to get with the Chiefs when they take on Buffalo. Mm-hmm. It's all going to hinge on what Josh Allen you get. But with the Steelers, I didn't think that they ever had a chance in this game, not with Mason Rudolph. They don't
he didn't play bad.
He didn't play bad, but he's not even a game manager. He's definitely not a game changer. Neither is Kenny Pickett. Obviously, they benched him. The Steelers have got
he got hurt, but
he ain't hurt now.
No,
and he didn't come back and get his job. So they got to find a quarterback. But also, I think for the Steelers, you got Mike Tomlin, who's now lost 5 playoff games in a row.
Yep.
I mean, obviously they had their Super Bowl that
he's won 2. He's won 2, hasn't he?
But since then, hasn't done anything in the playoffs. I mean, I can't remember the last time they won a playoff game. He's taking questions after the game, and one of the reporters asked, "Hey, Mike, you got 1 year left on his contract."
Well, so
he didn't even say nothing; just walked off.
Well, I think that was the last question of the press conference because the first video that I initially saw didn't do him justice, but I saw another video where somebody, like I guess their PR person, was saying, any other questions? And then she asked, I'd have walked out too. Yeah, so
I think the way that it worked is like they have their media obligations. They have to stay for a certain amount of time. Because you saw it with Marshawn Lynch that time.
Yeah, seriously, I don't get fined.
I'm just here so I don't get, he just repeated the same answers. They had to sit there for a certain amount of questions and or time. Yeah, Mike Tomlin, I think that he was frustrated. And the thing is like they know, these reporters know those kind of gotcha questions. They're going to get a reaction either way.
Yeah.
And even though she didn't get an answer on that question, she got a reaction.
Reporters got what they wanted. But honestly, I mean, like Cam Newton got some heat when the Panthers lost in the Super Bowl to the Broncos all those years ago. I mean, people were upset because he wanted to be anywhere else.
Right.
But
these players don't, especially after a playoff loss.
And they lost.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be there.
You want to be ecstatic and giddy about it?
Yeah, they're not going to give you great answers. Here, props to Dak on that. He does every time he takes it on his shoulders. He never gives bad answers. Yeah. He goes out, he takes it. There's no attitude or anything from him.
Yeah,
I'll give him that. Even when he sucks, he's good at answering the questions. He's good with that kind of stuff. But congrats to the Bills. Like I said, they're a hot team.
Yeah.
If you got efficient Josh Allen for the next 3 games, they could win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree.
The Lions and the Rams, I think this was the best game of the entire weekend.
Yeah.
I think every other game wasn't close. Final score-wise, there were some games that were close in the middle of the game.
Like some garbage time touchdowns.
Exactly. But as far as a good game from start to finish, Lions, Rams, it was everything it was billed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Matt Stafford coming back. A lot of people were like, I think you mentioned it. Like, don't do a
this isn't the time to do that
kind of thing. And they didn't. They were double burdening him. They were booing him.
Yeah,
I think that the Lions, like I said, they were a team where they could have easily faltered because of the hype, everything surrounding this game. Matt Stafford coming back, and they didn't. The fans
had Eminem there.
Yep, they did what they needed to do. They didn't, celebrate Matt Stafford. They booed him. They treated him like any other quarterback coming in. It was a tough game, but
it's a tale of two halves. Like, I mean, they did all the scoring in the in the first half,
right?
And I think the Lions had maybe 6 points in the second half, and the Rams had 9. There's like 6 and 3. But dude, I'm honestly I'm happy for Jared Goff.
Yes.
Excuse me. He got kind of cast out from Los Angeles. He took him to the Super Bowl in his third year. Wasn't what they wanted it to be. I don't think Sean McVay really wanted to.
I don't think he ever wanted.
I don't think he wanted to develop a quarterback. He wants a quarterback that's proven, like he got with Matt Stafford. Because I mean, they did win their Super Bowl with Matt Stafford. But very happy for Jared Goff. Again, what we talked about earlier with C.J. Stroud, having a great offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot of confidence. It's kind of built that confidence back up in Jared Goff.
I think with Jared Goff, though, even more so than the offensive coordinator, I think it's Dan Campbell. Because last year, Jared Goff quietly had an amazing season last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, there wasn't the playoff run or anything like that. But
I think they just missed it.
Statistically, Jared Goff had a great season last season, and Dan Campbell was calling plays last year. So I think Dan Campbell played. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Dan Campbell plays a lot into. Yeah, he just let go of. I think, and he may have let go of play calling towards the end of the last year, but he called plays for.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So I think that even if the offensive coordinator leaves, I think Jared Goff will be fine with them.
Yeah.
Because of Dan Campbell, I think that those two.
He's a heck of a coach.
He is, and every player on that team fits him. And like you said, the Rams kind of made a little comeback. It was a close game. But that's the kind of games that the Lions win is because of Dan Campbell. Those dirty games there at the end.
He's got some guts. I mean, that 4th and I think it was 4th and 1 right there in the red zone on the 2-yard line I think it was the second quarter where Goff threw the touchdown pass to Laporta. That took some guts.
That was big too. Laporta being available, coming back and playing. I think that definitely helped the Lions out. They have to have him. But it was a great game. It was everything it was billed to be.
Yeah, it was a really good game.
Like I said last week, I thought this was going to be the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, and
it was really the only true playoff game because, like I said, everything else was like blowouts pretty much.
Yeah, it's like dominating fashion.
Right. There were teams that tried to crawl back, but it was pretty much one team dominating the other.
Yeah.
All weekend, but this was a good game.
It's a good scrappy game.
Yep. Congrats to the Lions, the first win in 31 years?
I think the last time they won a playoff game, you weren't even born. Maybe. It was in 91.
Yeah.
It's 91. So, I don't think you were born, but yeah, happy for them.
Yeah.
They got, their opponent, next team we're going to talk about.
I think the Lions are going to the NFC Championship game.
I don't know, man. They got the Bucs, and the Bucs, granted, they did beat the Eagles, and that's the next game, final game to recap, but the Bucs pretty much dominated the Eagles last night.
Yeah.
That their defense, oh my God, their defensive line, they were just putting so much pressure on Jalen Hurts. He couldn't get comfortable. Yep. Obviously, not having A.J. Brown was a big thing. Jalen Hurts, was he healthy? It's hard to tell. But man, the Eagles just from last year to this year has just done a complete 180. Jalen Hurts, like we mentioned earlier, has regressed without having his offensive coordinator. They just couldn't get anything going on offense.
And really, the last 2 months is just they lost 6 out of their last 7 games.
Yep. They haven't looked good in those games either.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just, and then you don't have A.J. Brown. What's going on there?
Yeah, who knows?
Obviously, he was injured. We knew that there was an injury coming in. He was trying to get back.
But when you,
I think that he wasn't playing in the game because of injury.
No.
But when you pair that with he didn't play he didn't practice on Friday, and that just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, all right, he was a DNP.
Yeah.
And then that same day, wipes his Instagram, wipes his Twitter. anytime you see a player do that, like sometimes you'll see players do that like during contract disputes. I know Deebo Samuel did that whenever he was like trying to get a contract with the 49ers.
God,
it's just such diva stuff. Like, dude, you're not helping your team out at all. You're just adding.
Didn't they give him a big contract? What's his complaints?
Yeah, this is definitely not contract.
This
is
just not getting the ball.
This is just whatever's going on with the team.
Yeah,
and AJ Brown's always just been like a diva player. You've seen him yell at Jalen Hurts on the sideline before. He's just been one of those guys.
But I get it, and you saw it last night. I mean, Dallas Goedert was obviously visibly frustrated.
Yeah,
just there's nothing they could have done to, I guess, kind of get going. Like I said, Todd Bowles. I mean, that defense did a jam up job stopping them. I mean, dude, Baker Mayfield looked pretty dang good last night. It's not going to be an easy game.
He's sneakily.
He's had a resurgence season.
Yeah, and the thing is, like the Bucs' record wasn't great. They barely got won the division, all that. But as an individual, he's had a good year. And like I said, get hot. They got hot. They got confidence going into it.
That's like the last time the Giants won the Super Bowl. They weren't the best team, but they got hot, and they
just get hot at the right time. It's all about who's playing the best at the moment.
Yeah,
and I think that'll be a good game. Them traveling to Detroit. Before we move on to next week, some breaking news right before we got in here. Jason Kelsey is retiring. I do want to give a shout out to my wife. I had no clue that Jason Kelsey was even thinking about retiring, and she mentioned it the other night. She was like, "Isn't he retiring?" And I was like, not that I know of. Yeah. And she had heard it on the radio or something. I was like, I ain't heard nothing about it.
Well, I know there was a big talk about it last season, if he was going to come back or not after making it to the Super Bowl. I mean, I think he's 36, 37.
He's older, especially for a center.
Yeah, he's probably – somebody compared him – I think I was watching Scott Van Pelt after the game last night. They basically said he's like the Peyton Manning of the center position.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, heck of a career.
Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. Speaking of Jason,
that he spent his whole career with the Eagles.
I mean, he got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Played in another one. Speaking of Jason Kelsey, did you see the podcast clip with him and his brother?
Yeah, I think this is definitely that clip is. And that's a tough podcast that they do. Yeah, I think it's a great podcast that they do, but I think it's tough in the sense of when they start talking about each other's teams. Yeah, especially right now, especially with the way that it was going for the Eagles, like it's not going well, and that was definitely little brother gets under big brother's skin.
If they'd have been like us, me and you, he definitely would have swung on him. Oh, and that'd have been must watch. Yeah, that'd have been awesome. If that would have happened. And the fact that he didn't like cuss him out. Obviously he could have off camera.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was a phone call off camera for sure. But he just kind of walks away, come back to the next day. You could tell he was pissed. Just his facial expression. He was heated. I think it was good on him. It was very professional. One, he could have went off, but two, like you don't know what you're really gonna when you get that heated. Yeah, you're gonna say some things that you don't want to say, and it could have been about his teammates, stuff like that. He could have talked about the locker room. There could have been a lot of fallout from him. So kudos to him for just walking
anytime
away.
Like athletes, especially that are actively playing, it's those podcasts and everything are good up until when they start playing bad. Maybe not on an individual level, but like the team level. There's a goalie that I use that I follow his YouTube channel. His name is Ben Foster, and like he was known as the cycling GK. So he played for Watford, and so he would always have his GoPro in the goal. So because they were playing in the championship and they would allow it, right? And so he would always vlog and stuff, match day vlogs and everything. And Watford wasn't very good. And I know it always kind of perturbed some of the players and the teammates, and it's okay when you're winning, but when you start losing, you're struggling like that. Yeah, it's always an issue.
Yeah,
I'm sure he said some few choice words to him off the air.
Yeah, that was a conversation for sure off camera.
He probably came back on when he walked back off. He's like, I'm not doing this with you right
now. But kudos on a great career for Jason Kelsey. Yeah. Obviously, like we said, first ballot Hall of Famer, probably one of the best centers to ever do it. Again, I hate that he spent his entire career with the Eagles because I hate everything Philly. But we got a good divisional round. Let's run through these games real quick. Texans and Ravens. Texans are hot. Like I said, Ravens have been sitting it'll be going on 3 weeks of no real competition, especially for their starters, because they kind of sat Lamar Jackson in the last game.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't play this week. You got a whole week of practice coming up. It's practice. They're doing something, but there's no real competition.
Yeah.
The Texans, they've been fighting every single week, to get into the playoffs.
Got that momentum.
Then in the wild card game. So they're playing well. You got a team that's been sitting, and that's kind of always like the catch-22 of a bye. It's like, all right, you get some time off, you can get healthy, rest up some injuries, stuff like that. But you got teams that are playing, they're building that confidence, and you're sitting. Baltimore's favored by 9. I still think that Baltimore's a little bit too much for the Texans, but
it's Lamar Jackson. It's Lamar
he's the
Jackson.
MVP.
I mean,
he's the MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
But I'm gonna go with Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens as well. This game is Saturday at 4:30.
ESPN.
Yep, ESPN. Packers 49ers.
I think it's gonna be a tricky game.
This is. My cousin is a huge 49ers fan. We're going to be in Charleston at his house. I've already told him, dude, just go in another room. I don't have any stress this weekend.
Nope.
And I don't want to be, you go to another room. I'm not dealing with it because it's a night game. The 49ers are favored by 10, and I don't think that they're going to beat them that bad. I think that Jordan Love is playing well right now. I think they're rolling.
Yeah.
They're coming in off, nobody expected them to beat Dallas, and they destroyed them. And again, the 49ers, same situation. They rested players in that last game.
Yeah.
Didn't play this week. Sitting around, or they're practicing, but no real competition for almost 3 weeks.
I'm gonna go with the Niners, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers win, just because playing in Dallas last weekend, clearly, that home field advantage.
Jesus.
I mean, we record in the mornings. What do you want from me? But clearly playing in Dallas didn't affect them that much.
Right.
I mean, I feel like Dallas is more of a home field advantage than San Francisco.
Yeah.
So clearly the stage isn't too big for them.
Right.
Matt LeFleur, good friends with Kyle Shanahan. I'm going to go with the Niners, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers win.
I'm going to pick the Niners, but I think that this is not going to be a -10. I don't think that the 49ers, I think this is going to be a really good game.
Yeah.
And obviously, though, you never know. The 49ers could just come out and blow them out. But again, I think the Packers are riding confidence, and that's something that you want in the playoffs right now is confidence.
Agree, 100%.
Buccaneers will travel to Detroit on Sunday,
3 p.m.
3 o'clock.
NBC.
I'm going with the Lions. This is -6. I think that the Buccaneers, they got some confidence, but the Lions, they've played some tough games here towards the end of the year. They had the obviously that loss in Dallas. They had the tough game at the end of the year against the Vikings, where they were still trying to, play for that number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Obviously, then the tough game against the Rams. And I thought coming into the playoffs, I thought the Rams were the dark horse. I thought they were the most scary team coming in. So for them to survive the Rams, I don't think the Bucs are.
Yeah.
The Bucs are playing well, but again, even with that blowout against the Eagles just they were a shell of themselves. So it's really hard to tell what the Bucs have.
Yeah, the Bucs aren't going to have the home field advantage like they did last night.
Right.
I still like the way their defense. If they can get pressure on Goff like they did Jalen Hurts, I think they'll be okay. But I'm anxious to see how Baker plays on the road in the playoffs. Yeah, because you don't know what you're going to get from him. But I think it's the Lions for sure.
Yeah, I think the Lions, they got a team to make a run here, but I'm going with the Lions. And then the last game of the weekend, Chiefs-Bills, I think this will be the best game of the weekend. And obviously they're saving the best game for last, I believe.
Agree.
Buffalo's favored 2.5. Let's just get it out there. Is Taylor Swift going to travel to Buffalo?
She is. She is.
So Taylor Swift will be there. Well, obviously.
It's all going to hinge on what Josh Allen shows up for the Bills. If it's the Josh Allen that showed up early last night or yesterday against the Steelers,
they win. Yeah.
But if it's the one that turns the ball over in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes Chiefs will win, but I'm gonna go with the Bills.
And the Bills Chiefs playoff games, there's been all this, hoopla over the years, the overtime games, all this, and the Chiefs just always survive. I think, again, like you said, if you get efficient Josh Allen, you can't beat them.
No.
Not with that defense that the Bills have, not with the running game they have, paired with efficient Josh Allen and being able to run and throw the ball.
Yeah.
If he's not turning it over, you cannot beat him.
Especially where the Chiefs offense isn't what the Chiefs offense normally is.
Yeah, they don't have like that. They have Travis Kelce, obviously, but he's not having like this.
Pacheco.
Yeah, great year. They don't have the Tyreek Hill that they used to have. They don't have like this star, like you can't stop me player.
Yeah. Because that's what killed the Bills in the playoffs a couple years ago, where it was just that overtime shootout.
Yep.
It was they couldn't stop Tyreek Hill. They had the last time they played in the regular season was the big thing with Kadarius Toney lining up offsides. He didn't play on
Saturday. It was a healthy scratch,
which helped. Which helped the Chiefs, I think. But I'm gonna go with the Bills.
I'm gonna go with the Bills. I think. Here's the thing: I think Josh Allen's in the right mindset right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes the turnovers just come from him
just trying to do
pressing too much.
Yeah.
I think that the way that their defense is playing, the way that their running game is this year, I think that he doesn't have to press as much right now. If he can just sit back and play his game and not feel like everything's hinging on him, that's when he's the most efficient.
Agree.
And that's how they were playing yesterday. I think I'm gonna go with the Bills on this one. I think, again, as long as Josh Allen's playing efficient ball, I think that they're the best team in the AFC.
Hopefully the weather's okay.
Hopefully the weather's okay. They don't have a dome, so if it's snowing, it is what it is. Here's the thing: they don't have that underground system either.
No,
which is wild.
Their new stadium's going to, but I don't think they wouldn't have canceled the game if it was just light snowing.
Right,
people can drive.
Here's the thing: like if the Bills were playing the Chiefs this past week, and the roads were that way, the state of New York would have made sure that game happened. They would have cleared the roads because Taylor Swift was coming. Okay, they didn't have a superstar coming.
Yeah.
So
she'll be there.
If it's snowing like that, trust me, they will light the roads on fire.
They'll make
it
stop snowing. I bet.
Yeah. They'll put up a force field. They'll light the roads on fire to melt the snow. They'll make sure that Taylor Swift gets there, and it's whatever temperature she wants that booth. That's what it'll be.
89, because that's the year she was born.
So I'm just to run down quickly again. Texans Ravens 4:30 on Saturday. We're both going with the Ravens. Packers 49ers 8:15 Saturday. Both going with the 49ers.
Yep.
Bucks Lions 3 o'clock on Sunday. Both going Lions, and then Chiefs Bills. We're both going Bills. That's 6:30 on Sunday. It should be a good weekend, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully the games are closer this week and not just nothing but blowouts.
Excuse me.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, man. I mean, y'all make me record in the morning times. We
Get some coffee.
Can't do in the afternoons like
We're
normal
gonna start
people.
waking Kyle up at like 4 a.m. just getting his day going.
Man,
Clear his throat out.
I was fine, but I ran out of water. So,
all right. So we'll be back next week to recap divisional round.
Last thing, Kalen DeBoer's the Alabama head coach.
Yeah, a little bit of college. That's a shocker. That's a shocker to me.
I think it's going to be a good hire. Honestly, just anybody, succeeding. Nick Saban is going to be in a tough position.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
But I think he'll be okay. He's bringing a majority of his staff from Washington.
Yeah. Probably a lot of those players, too.
I think I saw yesterday where they are hiring the head coach from South Alabama to be the defensive coordinator.
There's going to be a lot of shake-up on Indiana. Both of those rosters. I mean, obviously, you've seen a lot of players from Alabama already hitting the portal.
I think more players have declared for the draft for Washington.
Yeah.
But I know they had gotten Will Rogers from Mississippi State to Washington. He's entered the portal. So I don't know if he's going to follow him to Alabama. What's Jalen Milroe going to do? It's definitely going to change up.
I think he already declared.
Jalen Milroe?
No. I think so.
Mm-mm.
He did something.
When did that happen? Would have had to have been this morning because I haven't seen anything about that.
Okay, so there was a fake account.
You always get duped by those fake accounts on Twitter.
I mean, I wasn't the only one. USA Today's.
I mean, this one, the SEC's 5 most important players who turned down the NFL draft, and Jalen Milroe's the thumbnail.
He's not a Michael Penix, so
no, he's not.
Did they want to get somebody more dynamic in there?
I think it'll.
It's tough. There's going to be a lot of shakeup between those two teams. I think this is a good move for him leaving Washington because I don't think that they were going to be as strong next year.
No, I don't think so either.
So obviously he can make this move, obviously have a better team, have a better chance. But he's also coming into the SEC where now they're throwing in Oklahoma and Texas.
And he's never coached on the East Coast. I guess that was some people's, knock on him.
Basically at Washington, he just had to beat Oregon, and that was it.
But I mean, I don't know. I think he's a dang good coach.
This will be I think it'll be a quick hook though. I think that he's not going to be given a lot of leeway.
No,
he can't go. He can't go 8-4. Here's the thing: it's like what would be an amazing season for some schools is like, all right, you can't do that here.
He's definitely going to regress. I mean, it doesn't matter. It never fails when a historic coach that's been at a program like Nick Saban was at Alabama and they leave or retire or whatnot. There's always a draw. Like there's always a regression.
Yeah.
Look at Duke basketball when Coach K. They're still ranked. They're still good, but they're not what they were under Coach K.
Yeah. And I think the best thing about what Nick Saban did was he just kind of walked away. He didn't do that whole thing that Coach K did where y'all celebrate me all season.
Yeah. Well, I think he and I
love when Big Cat always talks about that.
Yeah,
from Barstool. He said he was like, I'm just glad that he didn't do what Coach K did. Was like y'all worship me all season.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick Saban was back in the office. He was recruiting. Like the day before.
Yeah,
and he was back in the office the next day after he retired.
I really don't know what. I think he just was like, all right, I'm done with this.
Well, Reggie Bush said the NIL area ran him, and I don't think that
so.
was.
No,
I'm sure it was. I mean, he's getting up there in age. Man, that's an exhausting job having to keep up with all that now because at least in the NFL you have a front office staff.
Yeah.
In college football, that's the head coach, and you have to worry about these high school players coming in and what they're wanting NIL. Then you've got 70 other players coming to you stating, I'm leaving if I don't get X, Y, and Z. Yep. It's like, I mean, I'm sure that was taxing on him as he's getting older.
Yeah, I think it should have been a tale that he was thinking about retiring whenever he did his weekly thing with Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, let me see if I like this media, being on camera talking kind of deal. I think that he kind of grew into that. I think he likes that. I think that he knows, all right, I can walk away from football and still make a ton of money. He
needs to replace Lee Corso on game day.
Somebody does.
And I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's almost 90.
Yeah,
I mean, he's up there in age. So
I think that Saban will have a good career on camera. Yeah. Obviously, one of the greatest college football coaches.
He's the greatest. He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Next closest, Dabo Swinney.
Oh, Jesus Christ. In the show. All right. We'll be back to recap the divisional round. Look forward to the championship round next week if anything pops off. Obviously, we're going to start trying to do some little clips during the week if any breaking news happens. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank y'all. Man, my throat.